Please stand by. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Reporting Through the OLDC System conference call. Today's call is being recorded. Now I'd like to turn the conference over to Ms. Whitney Marsland. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Reporting Through the Online Data Collection System presentation. I'm Whitney Marsland of ICF, and I'm joined today by Gerald Shanklin, a program specialist from the Office of Community Services. Today's presentation will provide grantees with guidance and instructions for accessing and using the Online Data Collection System, or OLDC. This webinar will be useful for FY 2016 grantees who have never reported in OLDC before or who have not reported for their new grants. It will also serve as a refresher for returning grantees. The webinar is going to be recorded, and you'll be able to access the recording and a PDF of the slides on the CED webpage of the OCS website, which we will provide later in the presentation. And more information on accessing these materials will be provided in an email following the webinar. And now I will turn it over to Gerald.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Gerald Shanklin from the Office of Community Services. Today's webinar will provide you with information on accessing, using, and submitting your Performance Progress Report, or PPR, in the Online Data Collection System. Today's webinar will review the PPR timeline and important dates, provide guidance on logging into the system and accessing your grants, provide instructions on how to locate, complete, and submit the PPR in OLDC, and let you know where you can find additional information, additional resources, and support for completing your PPR. Specifically, we will show you how to access the PPR information page on the CED website. This will be our go-to place for resources and information regarding PPR. And we will provide you with the URL for this page at the end of this presentation. Keep in mind this presentation is going to walk us all through, because I'm going to learn as you will, how to use OLDC to submit your PPR. And there are some nuances today we'll find useful. For more information on the indicators of the PPR or your data you're collecting for the PPR, refer to the other resources and webinars we have on the PPR informational page on the CED website, which Whitney will show you how to access at the end of today's webinar. So now I'll turn it back over to Whitney.
Thanks, Gerald. So before we get into how to use OLDC, I just wanted to quickly go over some important dates. As a reminder, the PPR is a semi-annual report that you will submit through OLDC, and you submit that twice a year. The 6-month reporting periods are from April 1st to September 29th and September 30th to March 31st. This slide outlines the reporting periods and some PPR due dates. For the reporting period ending March 31st, the OLDC system opens the first day of April, and you have 1 month to complete and submit the report. So for new grantees, this is the first time you will be reporting for your newly awarded FY 2016 grants. These key dates are highlighted in red on the slide. And for the reporting period ending September 29th, the system opens the 1st of October, and you have 1 month to complete and submit the PPR. And I also wanted to briefly talk about Grant Solutions, which is another system that you will use a lot for your grant along with OLDC. So you probably already use Grant Solutions to access your notice of award, and you'll continue to use it to conduct some grant administration activities and communicate with your program specialist and grant management specialist. If you are a project contact or authorized official for your grant, you automatically have access to Grant Solutions. If your organization has received grants in the past, you use the same Grant Solution account for all of your grants. And if your 2016 grant is your first grant, you are provided with a username and password at the time of award. If for some reason you need to edit your existing account, you will submit a grantee user account request form. And if someone else in your organization other than the project contact or authorized official needs access to Grant Solutions, you will also submit the grantee user account request form. We went over that form in some earlier webinars in the fall, so if you need a refresher on how to access that form and submit it, you can go to the website to find that webinar. An OLDC is where you submit your PPRs. If you are a FY 2016 grantee, you must complete a request for OLDC access form in order to be able to see your new grant in OLDC. This step is necessary prior to completing your reports due April 30th. So we suggest you complete and return that form right away, and we'll provide instructions for doing so on the next few slides. And if you need to provide a new user within your organization with access to OLDC for either your new grants or your existing grants, you must also complete the request for OLDC access form with that person's information. All your forms will be submitted to the Grant Solutions Help Desk at help@grantsolutions.gov. And if you have questions about the forms or which form to submit, you can always contact us at OCS Registrar at ICF.com. So just a quick reminder that though both of these systems are different and used for different purposes, you will access OLDC through Grant Solutions at grantsolutions.gov. So after logging into Grant Solutions, you'll choose the online data collection option from the top menu bar, and we'll walk through how to do that today. For grantees with previous CED grants, accessing OLDC through the Grant Solutions site is a new process. It wasn't implemented until this past fall. And you'll remember that prior to this change, OLDC and Grant Solutions were accessed through separate URLs, and you had separate username and passwords for each system. So this change in how you log into OLDC is part of an effort to kind of streamline those systems, and both Grant Solutions and OLDC are now accessed through one link and use the same username and password for both systems. So for those of you that have used OLDC in the past, the functionality for the system is the same. The only difference is the URL and login credentials used to log into the system are the same. And we'll talk more about accessing each system later in the presentation. So earlier this morning, you should have received an email from the OCS Registrar that provided some instructions on how to complete the request for OLDC access form, and kind of introduce the form for those of you that haven't seen it or used it yet. And we'll go through this process now as well. So you'll access this form through the URL that was on the previous slide, and you can either fill it out electronically or print it out and complete it manually. It's a two-page form, as you see on this slide. The first page just includes some instructions on completing the form and a table that describes the job types and roles that you will select. And the second page is where you provide your personal information. You include information on the grants you need access to and the level of access you need. You'll complete the information within each section of page 2. So the first section, as you see on this slide, asks for just some personal information like your name and job title, and you'll identify the browser that you're going to be accessing the system from, and your contact information. The next set of questions ask for your person type, and for this you'll choose the grantee staff options. You won't be choosing the federal staff options. And then you'll identify if you already have an existing OLDC account. And this is important because those of you who have already been using OLDC for previous grants, you're not requesting a new account, you're just asking them to add the new grant to your existing account. So you want to specify that. And in the next line, you'll identify the grant number that you need access to, and your grant number is always 90EE followed by 4 digits. So you'll put your new grant number on that line. The next section is the assignments table, and it's a little bit more involved. It's where you'll identify the type of access you need in OLDC. There is room on the form to enter up to 4 grants that you need access for, but most likely you'll just be adding 1. So the first column of the assignments table is the programs column, and for a CED grant, you should enter urban and rural economic development. So that's the only option that you'll add for programs for your CED grant. Under the forms column, you'll select the all box, and then you'll include the specific form names specified on the slide. So the PPR is made up of a cover page and 3 forms, so you'll list the name of each form like you see in the slide for Form A, Form B, and Form E, and the cover page. The next is the job type column, and you'll want to refer to the list of job types table on page 1 of the form to help you determine the job type that you need. But if you're the authorizing official of your grant, you'll select the authorized official option, and if you're the project contact, you'll select the grant director option. If any additional members of your organization need access to OLDC, they should refer to the list of job types table on page 1 to determine the job type that they should select. And if you're not sure what they should select, they can contact us at OCS Registrar. You'll notice in the job type table that each job type has default roles, and they describe that in the table. So when you're selecting a job type, you want to select the type listed in the table that kind of best describes your role on the grant, and then you'll identify which default roles come with that job type. So for the authorizing official and grant director, the default role includes the ability to view the PPR and certify the PPR. The default roles do not include the ability to enter information in the PPR or submit it. So this means that at least one person at your organization will need to add the ability to edit and submit the PPR to their account. So this could be the authorizing official, the project contact, or another member of your organization. So to amend the default roles, you need to complete the additional roles column, which is the next column in that table, and we'll discuss that in more detail in the next slide. In the last column of the table, you can indicate if you would like to receive an email notification from the system when the PPR has been successfully submitted in OLDC. So we do recommend checking yes to this box because it'll be very helpful to ensure that you completed all the steps required to submit the PPR and helps you kind of keep a record of when and what was submitted in the system. Once you complete the form, take a look at it, make sure everything looks correct, and then you'll submit it via email to the Grant Solutions Help Desk at help@grantsolutions.gov. And then the Help Desk will review the form, process the request, and you'll receive access to the grant. We did get one question through the live meeting that I wanted to address now. The question is, we do have access to our current grant through OLDC. Do we need to fill out a new access form still? So the answer to that question is no. If you already have access to your new FY 2016 grant and you're able to get into your PPR, edit it, and you have the ability to submit, you don't need to submit this form. This form you will submit if you don't have access to your new grants in OLDC. So if you're not sure whether or not you should submit the form, you can contact us at OCS Registrar and we can talk after the presentation, kind of determine whether you need to submit it or not. So I want to go back to the additional roles aspect of this form because it can be a little bit confusing. So the default role piece of this is, so for the authorizing official and project contact, the project contact role is known as grant director on the form, do not allow for the ability to edit and submit the PPR. So you will need to make sure that at least one person at your organization is able to edit and submit the PPR. So to add additional roles to an account for the authorizing official or project contact, first you need to identify the additional roles you need in OLDC, like the ability to edit and submit the PPR. These roles are listed in the list of role table on page 1 of the form. So you'll choose the additional roles you need, keeping in mind you need at least one person at the organization to have the ability to edit and submit the PPR. And then in the additional roles column of the table on page 2, you will include the abbreviation for the roles that you are adding to your job type, like you see on the slide. You can kind of customize your job type based on what you need to access in OLDC, so you'll want to remember to refer back to those tables on page 1 of the form when you or others at your organization need to fill out the form. So, for example, let's say that at my organization, I'm the authorized official, and Jane is the project contact for our organization's 2016 CED grant. I will be overseeing kind of the larger aspects of the project, and I will not be editing or completing the PPRs, but I will be reviewing each PPR and certifying it in the system once I have approved it for submission. Jane is the project contact for the grant who handles the day-to-day aspect of the project, which includes collecting the data on the progress of the grant and completing and submitting the PPRs twice a year. So when I fill out my request for OLDC access form, I'm going to choose authorizing official for my job type. And according to the list of job types table, selecting this job type will give me the default permissions in OLDC to view the PPR and certify it, which means to sign it. And since I will only be reviewing the PPR and signing it in the system twice a year, I really don't need more permissions than that. So I will leave the additional roles column of the assignments table blank. But when Jane fills out her form, she's going to choose the grant director for the job type. And like the default roles for authorizing official, selecting this job type will only give her the ability to view and sign a PPR. So she will need to update her form because she will need the ability to create and edit a PPR and submit it in the system. So she'll need to add all grantee roles listed in the list of roles table to her additional roles column. And a list of all the roles your organization needs is listed on the slide for the person that's going to be editing and submitting the PPR. Again, as you're filling out these forms, if you're confused on what job type or what additional roles you should select, contact us at OCS Registrar. So we just got one more question through the live meeting. The question is, if I am the grant administrator, am I automatically assigned all roles, including certifying and submitting the PPR? So this is going to depend on whether or not you already have access to your new grant in this system. So if you already have been able to go into the PPR and make changes and save those changes, you should have access to certify and submit. But if you are filling out this form to request access to your new grant, you will need to make sure that you enter in the roles that you need specifically. So if you're the grant administrator and you're choosing either the authorized official or the grant director role, you will need to add those permissions to make sure that you're able to edit and submit the PPR. And since this is a new process, if you have more questions, we're going to kind of take a break right now, and you can either ask questions by calling in, which you do by pressing *1 on your phone, or you can continue to submit some questions to the live meeting. So we'll just take a quick minute or so break to see if anybody has any initial questions. I know this is a new process, and assigning your job types is a little bit confusing, so call in or submit some questions over a live meeting I don't think we have any new ones in the live meeting. But operator, do we have any questions over the phone at this point?
No questions from the phone lines at this time.
Okay. So the next part of the...
Oh, I'm sorry. We do have one question in the queue.
Sure.
I was wondering if this slide is printable or can be accessed somehow.
Yeah, so these slides will be available, and the recording will be available in a few days. We'll send you an email once they're available, and before you get the slides, if questions come up that you have about today's webinar or completing the forms, you can submit them to the OCS Registrar address that you see on the slide here, and we can ask them, we can answer your questions that way too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And no additional questions.
Okay, so we're also going to have some time at the end to answer some questions, so we can kind of move on now to actually using the OLDC system and how you'll kind of access, edit, and submit the PPR within the system once you kind of get access through the process that we just talked about. As I mentioned earlier, you access OLDC via a link within Grant Solutions at grantsolutions.gov. The former OLDC link is no longer a working link, and OLDC can only be accessed via Grant Solutions using your Grant Solutions username and password. So in your internet browser, you'll go to grantsolutions.gov, and the Grant Center of Excellence homepage will appear, and you'll select the orange button that's titled Login to Grant Solutions, like you see in your slide. And then the login screen will display, and you'll enter your username and password, and then you'll log in. This is what you'll see once you log into Grant Solutions. It's the My Grants list, and you'll notice that there are many different options in the top menu bar, kind of depending on your access level. So to access OLDC, you'll select Online Data Collection from this menu bar, and the OLDC home screen will open in a new window. So this is the home screen. There's actually two kind of versions of the home screen. This is the original view, and there's also an enhanced view. So to activate the enhanced homepage, you'll select that switch homepage link that's highlighted in the right of this top right of this slide, and it'll kind of switch you over to the advanced homepage, which you'll see on the next slide. The enhanced homepage was created to kind of improve navigation and make OLDC easier to use, and has some advanced features like a search and sort function. But despite the look, the functionality of both homepages are the same. So you can kind of choose which one you want to make your default that you want to use. Regardless of which homepage you're using, to access your PPR, you'll select the Report Form Status button. There's a number of kind of buttons on this screen, but another one that you'll probably use frequently is the News and Tips button. This has some guidance on using the home pages and using OLDC. Now we'll review the steps that you take to actually locate your PPR and begin completing your report. So from the OLDC homepage, you've selected the report form entry, and now you'll select your program name in the dropdown. And you'll select the Urban and Rural Economic Development option, and remember that's the program name that you also entered on the request for OLDC access form. If you have multiple grants, your organization name may be listed multiple times in this dropdown. So if you're looking for your most recent grant, you'll select your organization name with the highest two-digit number at the end. And that kind of indicates to you it's the most recent. This can be a little bit confusing if you have multiple grants, but the more that you use the system, the more familiar you will become with it, and you'll get used to the option that you're supposed to select. Next, in the report name dropdown, you'll select the Program Performance Form CED option. This is the only form you will access through OLDC, so you won't ever choose any other option in that dropdown. The report period table will appear once you select the report name, and then you'll choose the grant number that populates in the funding grant period dropdown. Again, if you have multiple grants, they will populate, all your grants will populate in this dropdown. So if for some reason you don't see the grant that you're looking for in this dropdown, it's probably because you didn't choose the correct organization name option back in the last step. So you just need to go back and select a different option with different two-digit number at the end. And again, this gets kind of easier to identify the more that you use. So once you've selected the correct grant, you'll choose the correct reporting period in the table. It is very important that you complete your report for the correct reporting period. If you don't, there's no way to change the reporting period, and you'll have to re-enter the information for the correct period. So to avoid this problem, just be sure you select the radio button next to the date for the correct reporting period. Once you start working in your PPR, you'll select the New Edit Revise Report. For returning grantees that have reported on their grants in the past, before you begin your current report, you'll also want to make sure that you've submitted your previous reports and that they are in the status submission accepted by CO. If you begin your current report without your previous report being approved, your baseline data will not populate correctly. So if your previous report is not submitted, you want to submit that as soon as possible. And if it's not accepted, you'll want to let us know that. And you don't want to begin your new report until your previous one is accepted. So contact us at OCS Registrar. And for new grantees that haven't reported yet, just kind of keeping an eye on what the status is of the previous report is something that you'll want to keep in mind as you continue reporting on your grant. So to edit your report forms, you will do this from the report section page that you see on the slide here. You can access each form by selecting Edit Section. And remember that the report consists of a cover page and 3 forms, Form A, Form B, and Form E. And you'll need to kind of go through each form and complete them. The first form is the cover page. You don't need to make any edits on this page until you are marking the report as final. And since this is the first time you're reporting on your new grant, you won't have to worry about that for a few years. So your first time reporting, you should just confirm the information on the cover page is correct. If it's not correct, you'll want to notify your program specialist so they can advise you on how to update this information in Grant Solutions. And if everything looks good, you'll select Save, and then you'll select the Next Section button. After selecting Next Section, it'll take you to Form A. And in Form A, you will update the cumulative data into the actual to-date column field. You want to select Save as often as possible as you are putting in data for the PPR. The explanation field to the right of the actual to-date column is where you can elaborate on the numbers you are entering in the actual to-date column field. And as you input that information, save as often as possible. The baseline column is for your baseline data, which in this case is the data you submitted in the PPR for the previous reporting period. So for all of you reporting on this grant for the first time, your baseline data for all indicators will be 0 since you haven't reported yet. And the project target column shows the number of businesses, jobs, and employees, and the amount of leverage funds that you proposed in your original application. In addition to saving, you can also select Validate as you go. which will kind of alert you if there's any errors in your data, so you can take care of those errors as you go rather than validating them at the end. So you'll go through and do the same thing for all other forms, Form B and E, and throughout the process of completing and editing the PPR, again, save your work often. You'll be able to kind of navigate through the forms by selecting that Next Section button. But in addition to that, you can also skip around between forms and navigate through them using the Report Sections page. So from any page within the Report Form Entry section, you'll see options at the top menu bar. So OLDC Home, the Form Selection, Report Sections, and you will select the names of those pages to kind of move from page to page. You cannot use the back button in your browser to move from page to page. It'll take you off of the page, and that's why we also say save as often as possible, because if you accidentally hit the back button, you do want to make sure that the work that you've put in is saved. So say if you're working in the cover page and you want to kind of skip over to Form B, you will select your Report Sections from the top navigation bar, and on the Report Section page, you see on your slide, you'll select Edit Section from the Form B dropdown and then select Go, and it'll take you to Form B. Throughout the reporting process, your PPR will go through a variety of stages kind of as you're saving and moving through forms. It's a common mistake that grantees think that they've submitted their PPRs when in reality they haven't gone through all the steps needed to successfully submit the report so your program specialist can review it. The more you report, you'll become familiar with these stages, but we'll go through them now just so you know what each one means. So when you first open your PPR, it will be in the stage initialized, which means that you've opened the report. Once you start entering data and hitting the saved button, the status will move to saved, which means you've entered either some of your information or all of your information. Once you hit that validate button to check your errors, it will be in validated status, and this means that you've entered some or all of your data, because remember, you can select that validate button as you go, and we'll check your data for math errors. A certified status means that you've completed adding the data to your report and that you've signed the report electronically. This step often gets confused with submission, so just keep in mind that once you certify your report, you're still required to click that submit button for your report to kind of go be sent to the program specialist in the system. Once you've successfully hit that submit button, your report will either be in submitted or submitted with warnings status. Your report can be submitted with some warnings, and it'll show you in the system which warnings that you have, but don't be alarmed if you see the submitted with warning status. It still means that your program specialist can access and review the report. Submission in review means that you've submitted your report and your program specialist is currently reviewing it. After the program specialist has reviewed the report and accepted it, it will be in submission accepted, and you'll also get an email from the system that lets you know that the report is accepted and there's no further action from you on it until the next reporting period. If your report is ever in the submission returned by CO, that means that your program specialist has reviewed your PPR in the system that you submitted, but they either need you to clarify information, add more information to the PPR, or just have some questions, so they'll send it back to you in the system. You will get an email from the system letting you know that the program specialist has sent it back, and your program specialist will reach out to you either by email or phone to let you know where in the PPR they need more information or need you to clarify. So you'll make the edits that they request, and you'll resubmit the PPR just like you did the first time, and then they'll be able to review it again. If at any point you're kind of unsure what stage your report is in, you can always check within the system using the timeline that's found at the top of each report. So that's what's highlighted in red on your slide. And this is important to look at when you have certified the report and you're not sure if that means that you've submitted it. You can easily check on the timeline. When you are editing a returned PPR, sometimes people aren't sure how to do that when it's returned to them in the system. That's one of the most common questions that we get from grantees is, my program specialist returned the PPR that I submitted and requested that I make some changes, and I don't know how to do that. So if your PPR is rejected, again, it means that you need to add more detail or your program specialist needs some clarification on that. So the system will let you know, you'll get an automated email, and your program specialist will follow up with you as well. So then after your program specialist kind of lets you know what information you need to update or change or add to the PPR, to edit the report once it's returned to you, first you need to unsubmit the report. So to do this, you'll navigate to the report form status page and select the blue Unsubmit Report button. I think that sometimes grantees get a little weary of selecting this, but if you do need to kind of undo anything in your report, you will hit this Unsubmit button. And if you're ever not sure if this is what you're supposed to do, you can contact us at OCS Registrar. Then after you unsubmit the report, you also need to uncertify it, meaning unsign it, and you'll do that by selecting the blue Uncertify button. So you'll always remember that if you need to edit a returned PPR, you first need to unsubmit the report and then uncertify the report. Then once it's uncertified, you'll be able to edit the report, make any changes you need, recertify it, and resubmit it. One way you can kind of avoid getting a PPR returned by your program specialist is to kind of watch one of our webinars that we have on the PPR page, which is called Submitting a High-Quality PPR. It provides some tips and guidance for completing high-quality PPRs and kind of highlight some key details that must be included for your PPR to get submitted. Even if sometimes if you do submit a really high-quality PPR with a ton of information, your program specialist might still have some questions and send it back to you, and then you can edit and resubmit it in the system. So one thing to keep in mind as you're entering your PPR is that reports can still be submitted with warnings, like I mentioned, but you cannot submit a report if it has any errors. Those errors must be resolved before the report can be submitted. So you might get an error if you leave a field blank or if your baseline numbers exceed the actual to-date column numbers, and you can look in the system and it will explain why you're getting an error and how you can correct it. So just keep in mind that warnings you can submit with, errors you cannot, so you'll want to work to resolve those in the system. And there's more information within the system on why you're getting an error, and if you're still not sure, you can contact OCS Registrar or your program specialist. So that was a lot of information on the process for gaining access to OLDC, how you access your PPR within OLDC and submitting it. But we have a lot of resources and places that you can go for assistance as you're completing these reports. And if for some reason anyone at your organization did not receive your Grant Solutions username or password, or you're having any trouble accessing OLDC, you can contact the Grant Solutions and OLDC user support at help@grantsolutions.gov. And in addition to the help desk, there's a lot of good resources on the Quick Sheets page of the Grant Solutions website at the URL on this slide. We also have the PPR Information page, which Gerald mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, where it's kind of your go-to place for resources and webinars and any information you need to know about OLDC and submitting your PPR. if you go to the PPR information page and you're still not sure about something with submitting the PPR using OLDC, you'll also want to contact the OCS Registrar at ICS.com, and you can always contact your program specialist. They're available to provide kind of general assistance, and they can also refer you to the right resources and help you make sense of the issues that you may be encountering. So there's a lot of resources that you can refer to help you as you're reporting and using OLDC. So that will conclude the presentation. So at this point, we will open it up for questions again, and we'll kind of do our best to answer any questions that you have. If we're unable to answer your question or we don't have time to get to the question, we will definitely follow up with you after the call. Remember, you can answer your questions through live meeting like some of you have been doing, or you can answer them over the phone by pressing *1. So we'll wait a few minutes to see if we haven't get any questions. I see in the live meeting, we also had another question about accessing the slides. So again, they will be available to all of you, the slides, a recording, and a transcript of today's presentation. It will be posted to the website, and we will send you an email following the call when the materials are posted to the site so how you can access them. Operator, do we have any questions on the phone line right now?
We have one question in the queue. Caller, please go ahead.
Yes, hi. As far as the program specialist, it would be available, the name and the contact information is available on the grant.gov or grantsolution.gov.
So there, I do not believe your grant solution, your program specialist information is going to be available in OLDC, but in the grant solution site under the contacts, you should have your program specialist name, their contact information listed. So in the email of the presentation, we can include instructions on how you access that. The program specialist, their name and information is also on the CED website. And if you're ever not sure who your program specialist is or who your grants management specialist is, if you email OCS Registrar, we can provide that information to you as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And no additional questions from the phones.
Okay. We'll wait a few more minutes for other folks to submit questions. And again, if you start filling out the form and questions come up, you can email us at OCS Registrar, and we will help you get the form completed and submitted. We did have one question come in through the live meeting. The question is, going back to the home page, there's no preference which home page to use, regular versus enhanced. So maybe we could go back to that slide. Then there's no preference on which homepage you can use. The enhanced homepage has some new features, like there's a due date column, so you can kind of easily identify when a PPR is due or when the next PPRs are due. You can sort by more recent PPRs, but in terms of functionality in accessing your PPR through the homepage, there's no difference between the two homepages. And to kind of learn more about the new homepage and the different options it has for you, if you go to that news and tips link that's highlighted on the bottom, it's the last link highlighted in red there. It kind of shows you what you can get out of the enhanced homepage. So it's really up to you, whichever preference. And you can switch back and if you go to the enhanced homepage and then you don't really like it, you can switch back to the original one and vice versa.
And we have a question from the phone lines.
Sure.
My name is Marcel.
Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is. Okay. I have a question. We received a grant to build a commercial kitchen and invest in two businesses. Will be an equity investment. One is a tortilla factory, is part of LLC company, but the tortilla factory is new, and to invest in clothing manufacturing. We are in the phase of pre-development because we are working with the city of Omaha, all the plans and designs for the construction. This means that at this time we cannot report jobs, no, because we are in the phase of pre-development. We will have 5 years to create the jobs. There is something special for us to prepare our field report.
So it sounds like you haven't created the jobs yet, or you don't have that information yet from the jobs or the businesses, and you're wondering.
No. We will do it. We will have construction. We have a land. We will build a commercial kitchen. We will build a tortilla factory. We have the businesses, but until we don't build, we cannot create the job. Yeah. Okay. First is the development of the project.
So if you're,
we are planning with we are working with the businesses right now, the planning of the project, no? But if one business that is in operation, the others will report jobs when we have the areas.
Right. So in any case, if you haven't created jobs yet, I know that the grants are still new. You've just awarded them 6 months ago. So if you don't have jobs created, you should put 0 jobs in your PPR. And then in the explanation field, you can explain to your program specialist just what you just explained over the phone, that you're still in the development stage and that you're still in the construction stage, so the jobs haven't been created yet. I don't think you should be kind of weary of entering in 0 for the jobs data at this point. As long as you explain why the jobs haven't been created, you will complete the forms. Even if you say you had no businesses created and no jobs created, you still need to.
Maybe one. We have one. No, the businesses are created. Yes.
Right. In your situation, you have a business created, but even if you didn't have any businesses created or no jobs created, you would still have to enter zeros in for those indicators and submit the report. Even if you don't have jobs created, it's still a PPR that you must submit in the system. So just utilize those explanation fields to kind of let your program specialist know what's going on. If you say you're in the development stage, they'll understand that the jobs can't be created yet. So as long as you provide that information, that's totally fine, but you'll still need to submit the report in the system.
Okay, thank you. Very clear.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No additional questions.
Okay, let's see if there's any other questions. So it doesn't look like there's any written questions either. So we kind of encourage you to look at the form, and if you haven't been an OLDC yet, go into the system, see if it makes sense to you, and if as questions come up about accessing OLDC or using the system to submit your PPR, definitely contact us at OCS Registrar or your program specialist. I'll check one more time to see if we have any questions on the line.
And again, for the phone lines. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No questions on the phone?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so with that, we will conclude today's call.
I'm sorry, we do have a question.
Sure.
It's Andrea Jackson from. Hello, it's Andrea Jackson from Vermont Slauson. I have a question. In our PPR, we have job-related information for the number of low to moderate jobs that we're to create, and then we also have in our program the number of full-time jobs that we are to create. And that's confusing to me, and I'm not sure if we've gotten to that part. Can you explain what the difference is between the those two job requirements that need to be reported on?
Sure. So are you asking me to? Sure,
Gerald. I can answer that. You have to understand that the definition of a full-time job is a worker that works beyond 30 hours, at least 30 hours a week. So that's what you really want to report on as those people as being full-time. anybody else are reported as part-time, but, you know, the purpose of the program is to create full-time jobs, so that's the important piece.
Okay, so we're reporting on two classifications of jobs, it sounds like to me. Those that fall within the low to mod income range, and then those employees that work over 30 hours a week. That's the distinction between the two.
That's correct.
Yes, and also keep in mind that there is one part-time indicator within the PPR where you can count those part-time jobs that are under 30 hours a week. The other jobs that you're counting that are full-time jobs for low-income people should be counted in the job indicator OA06J, which asks for full-time jobs that are filled by low-income people. If you have full-time jobs that are filled by non-low-income people, you also can enter that information in the PPR. It's a separate indicator. It's AOOJ, and it's where you'll let your program specialist know the full amount of jobs that you're creating for full-time employees for both low-income and non-low-income people.
Okay. All right.
Does that clarify for you? Or
I got to think about it. And I don't.
And
sorry.
If you want to also kind of like take a look at the PPR and then contact us with the OCS Registrar, we can kind of follow up this presentation, call you, and go through the indicators and make sure that you understand the difference and what you're supposed to report on. So we can definitely follow up with you on that.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I just want to have one response to that, and that is, are you keeping track of the folks that are earning, you know, at a certain level, which would be over the required threshold? I think it's 125% of poverty level folks who would be the would not count towards the low income threshold.
That's something that we're going to have to revisit.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Gerald. Really appreciate all of the insight.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And Ms.
Are there any other questions on the phone?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we will wrap up today's call. Thanks for all the questions, and for everyone that joined today's webinar. Any follow-up questions, let your program specialist know or let us know at the OCS Registrar at icf.com, and we will send an email when today's recording and slides are available.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, again, that does conclude today's conference. Thank you all again for your participation.